Hi, welcome to How to Be a Human Leader Without Losing Your Job. We're here to chat about human leadership in a way that's real and relatable, tackling work-life challenges and offering practical advice to navigate tough decisions. Whether you're leading a team or navigating your own career, we got you covered. I'm Roberto Torres, a startup engineering leader, and with me is Chris Ollerkin, a Fortune 100 IT leader. We'll dive into the real world stuff, share experiences, and offer guidance on leading with compassion while keeping your career on track. Today, we will discuss how to spot negative traits during an interview. Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing good, Roberto, and it's a very interesting topic to bring up because in the news they've been talking about people maybe hugging their jobs and not going on interviews, and other people going on lots of interviews because they can't find the next opportunity they want. So I'll bet we both have some unique views on this.
Yeah, indeed. Or maybe they are not happy or where they are, where people are at the companies, and maybe they're looking for a change of scenery, right?
Certainly, certainly. Maybe
Yeah,
going to Vallarta or other places like that for a change of view.
yeah, indeed, man. Well, um, I know that you spent 35 years in two companies. One was European and the one was Honeywell. Um, but I don't know if during that time you had interviews for other companies, and if you had, did you have did you spot on any problems or something that wouldn't say or would say this is not the company that I want to work with?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually both interviewed outside, to go to
Mm.
other companies, but also internally. Honeywell and UOP both required extensive interviews. So you were frequently competing with outside candidates. So yes, the people interviewing you knew you were an employee, but you went through the same interview process that the external candidates did too. And there were occasions that I was on internal and external interviews where I said, something doesn't quite seem right. I don't think this role in this part of the organization is going to be a good fit for me. So I think anybody when they're interviewing, they should look out for certain things, and we'll go back and forth a little bit. One of the big ones for me, and this was with an external company, and I made it through all the different layers. And my final interview, and I thought the company was actually pretty good. And I got to the final interview with the CIO, and this guy was swearing constantly, cursing.
Mm.
Now, in some cultures in the United States, primarily in the East Coast in New York, it is fairly common for a lot of people to swear at work. In my environment, where I grew up with all engineers and all people who at a minimum had bachelor's degree, many had PhDs, some several PhDs, I had not heard a swear word my entire time at work up until that point, ever.
Mm.
And as soon as this guy started interviewing me and swearing, I was like, nope, not coming to this company. Literally, my decision up until that point was as long as the money was good, I was going. And this guy was swearing more than a sailor. That's how we say things in the US, swearing more than somebody who's in the military. I mean, just every word, every sentence, there had to be curse words in it. And I was just like, look, I get sometimes I swear too. I'm not perfect, but not conversing with you in a professional way. That's inappropriate. And I was, nope, won't go. That company, by the way, went bankrupt about 4 years later.
Well, okay. Yes, I can see that because when someone is talking and every couple of words, one is a bad word, man, I wouldn't feel comfortable. And imagine what will happen if you hire within that company, you will feel overwhelmed by all these bad words.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well. I had my share of interviews in different companies, and some negative traits that I have to mention are the lack of responsibility towards an interview. And what I mean by that is, let's say that that I had an interview and it was agreed 2 weeks before that specific meeting. Okay, so we have it on our calendar, we block it. We understand that in 2 weeks' time, we're going to have this meeting. Someone is going to interview me. I arrive to the meeting, and then I wait 5, 10, 15 minutes. Nobody appears, and then I leave. What happened to me was I wrote to the HR, to the person in HR, and I say, hey, this meeting, this person didn't arrive. I waited for 15 minutes, so I had to leave. Thank you. And then 5 or 10 minutes later, she told me, oh, Roberto, I'm sorry, there was a misunderstanding. Could you meet in 20 minutes? That is a negative trait that says, okay, you didn't show any sign of respect toward me because we agreed 2 weeks' time before this meeting. So what would happen to me if I say yes, first of all, to the meeting, and second, what happened if I would be hired for this company? There will be no sign of respect of your time or anybody's time. And I think, and you and I know that time's precious and we cherish it because the second we are living right now, we're not going to have it anymore. So time is equals to respect. And in this case, it wasn't.
Yeah, that is definitely a huge red flag for me too.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's when people, I think, take for granted other people's time. When they say, oh, they're in an urge for an interview, they must be treated the same. No, we have to be treated with respect. Because if I treat you with respect, I trust that you will do the same with me, right?
Yes, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Huge red flag.
Yeah, indeed, red flag. And I have others, but do you think of something else?
All right, I'll trade and I'll take one. One of the things that I always hated was if they're interviewing me and they didn't take any time to prepare. So when I come into an interview and I'm interviewing with you to join your company, I've already got 5, maybe 10 questions that from searching the internet, I couldn't get answers that I wanted that I want to ask you. If I show up to the interview and you literally haven't even looked at my resume and you don't have really like, all right, hold on, Roberto, give me, 10 minutes while I read your resume and I'm just going to sit here while you sit and read it. Oh, that's a bad situation. Now, maybe you've got an interview with 6 people and there's only one person out of the 6 that did that to you. All right, I'm a little concerned, but 1 out of 6 people doing that to me, I'd still come to the company. But if all 6 people at the company do that to you during your series of interviews, something's either wrong in terms they have too much workload. In other words, they're buried so much that they can't even take the time to look at a resume prior to the interview. Then maybe you don't want to be there because they can't allocate work and time very well. Or they're just so starving for resources, you're going to be buried with work. But if they just sit there and read my resume in front of me and they didn't prepare at all, I generally would certainly move that company down on my priority list. It may not be a positively no way level insult, but it's pretty high on the list.
Yeah, I think the same with you. I think it's really important when we interview someone that we must prepare. just to open a parenthesis over here, not to deviate a little bit. I remember well last year, I interviewed an intern, and this guy in his resume at the end told me, well, not told, said that he was the captain squad of rugby national team. I said, oh my God, I'm going to ask this guy about it. And I was so eager to say that and convey that to the interview. So, you know, when we are interviewing, being interviewed, and we have something very particular, and they asked us about that, is because they read it. They read our resume. Otherwise, it's like a simple tram. But well, okay. Let me take the mic over here. The microphone over here. One thing that you and I are, we are humane leaders. We are humane leaders. We know what to do. We understand that we have to deliver results, and we have a team in which we have to protect, but we have to motivate and we have to boost. One thing that it doesn't work for me, it is micromanagement. It is something that it doesn't go along with myself, nor my philosophy. So if someone is telling me, hey, how do you, what do you think of micromanagement? This question might have two different sides of the coin. It might say, hey, are you a micromanagement leader, which are you going to breathe on the neck of your team members? Or more important, that person who might be your manager in the future is telling you, I am a micromanagement leader and I'm going to breathe on your neck. So it's really important to notice this, detect if it's a red flag, and if it is as a micromanagement, say, oh wait, I'm not going to be over here.
Yes, and I agree with you. I want to add one caveat, one slight angle to it, is just make sure that as they're probing around attention to detail, that the micromanagement is around micromanagement and not about attention to detail. Because sometimes as you move up in the organization, they want you to think big picture, right? So don't micromanage, big picture. But then they critique you because you missed a bunch of details and the project was not a success. You declared it over and successful, but you missed a bunch of details. So which was it? Was it that you didn't micromanage, so now you're in trouble because you looked at the big picture and it seemed like it was done? Or so do be aware as you're interviewing, you're right, if they seem overly attentive to details to the point that it's micromanagement, you probably will find it oppressive, right? That they're always constantly over you, how you're getting things done. But if it's, look, you know, I'm going to give you 10 specific things you need to finish, check back with me when you're done. And if that's a week or 2 weeks, that's fine. One answer is a attention to detail. The other is micromanagement, right? In those kinds of situations. So do be careful. Definitely agree with you. Don't like to be micromanaged. Got to be careful that your lack of attention to detail could get you in trouble.
Yeah. But for that, I have not a solution, but a contra argument. Not about what you said, but what I said. It is to ask the guy or the gal who is interviewing. Okay, let's say that I report to you. Will you? What is your leadership style? Would you provide autonomy to myself? And that will give you the answer. Maybe
yes.
a micromanagement said, no, I'm going to be breathing on your neck. My micromanagement style, it is, and it will always be. Or they will say something opposite. With that, you will have your answer. Or you might say also, is this micromanagement focused on details rather than leadership style? And then you will have your answer. The thing is, whenever you have a doubt, ask. ask a question. That is the space, because if you don't ask it and you decide to, yes, I'm going to that company, and then you discover it 1 week, 2 weeks later, or 1 month, well, you didn't ask the proper questions.
Absolutely. And you really got to ask the person that you're interviewing with, in this prospective company that you're coming to, listen to how they're responding to some of your questions too, around leadership style and things like that. If they have an answer that sounds very canned or practiced, like their slogans, be very nervous. Because if it sounds like they're telling you and they're having a conversation with you, explaining scenarios and how they would handle things that are going successfully, things that are going poorly, to explain their management style to you as the job candidate, that sounds good. If they just shout phrases at you, well, we're a Six Sigma company and we've all got black belts and we're all going to get our PMI certification. Okay, well, that's nice, and certifications are good, but if you're using just kind of marketing words describing your environment, I worry about companies that don't have warmth or color to the explanation of their culture. If they just repeat marketing words at you, that's because the bosses above them are telling them, these are the words you need to use to describe us, and that can be a sign of micromanagement.
Yeah. Or the lack of proper management style that they don't have. That's something that might happen also.
Yeah, if it's just crazy chaos.
Yeah. One thing that I think it's also important to notice or spot on in an interview with your manager is the passion that that person conveys while you're asking a question that is not, I wouldn't say related, but it is not expected. Something that in their script they didn't preview of that. So you might say, hey, Chris, could you tell me what is your day-to-day? How are we going to interact? I don't know, something very direct and particularly, so they would they might think for a couple of seconds, but they will show some passion about it. If they are like a rock and they show no emotion, that is a no-go. But if there is, hey, Chris, we're going, yes, that is an amazing question. Guess what? We have all these problems, and you and I are going to talk a lot. We're going to communicate. We're going to devise, yada, yada, yada. That passion is what fuels a good relationship within work. So try to spot on that.
Yeah, spot the energy that they have for things, because I found, this was back before WebEx interviews and these kinds of things, where, you might come in for 2 hours of interview and meet with 3 people. I would always watch for the energy between the handoff to the next person. So in other words, is the leader of the company is taking you to the next leader of the company to interview with, how's the interaction between the two of them? And what is their energy level, excitement, happiness? Are they dreary? All right, Roberto, here's Chris. I'm done with him. You interview him now. Uh-oh. Boy, they both sound like they're getting beat up all day long. Unless it's a boxing company, I don't know that I want to work. I don't know that I want to work there, right? But if they say, Roberto, hey, great to see you. We got to do lunch sometime. Listen, I got Chris for you. I got to get going to a meeting. We'll catch up with you later. Oh, they got some energy. They're happy to see each other. Things are going good. They knew the handoff was to take place. It's organized. Good sign. But if they sound like, oh my God, I'm so beat up. Yeah, thanks for getting them to me. I'm just buried today. Ooh. Might not be the company you want to work at for the next 30 years.
Yeah, they might be burned out at 11 a.m. So that is a sign that you have to notice and avoid.
Amen.
Yeah,
Amen.
yeah, I understand. Um, I think that there are many different things that we could spot on during an interview, but one thing that we must understand is that we must be unbiased of our emotions to get a job. Let's say, for instance, we don't have a job for a couple of months or maybe a year. We are eager to have a job because our savings are almost depleted or on the brink of that, that we require to earn some money. Everybody has different priorities and they had to choose wisely. But if you see red flags and you say to yourself, oh, they're going to change, that it is not going to happen to me because your urgency for money, it is higher than your unbiased. Everything's going to be really bad when you're decided to accept that job offer. Don't you agree?
You need to be objective. You need to do your
Objective.
best, no matter how hungry you are for the work. Objectively analyze all the different places you interviewed, or maybe it's unfortunate, maybe you've only been able to get this one interview, but you're seeing all these red flags, all these problems. Be objective and think about that. And is it really worth it to work at some place that very likely you're going to be interviewing in 3 months, to find something else? And I think, I'm saying I certainly, if I was out of work for a while, my blinders are gonna be on. I'm gonna start to be less objective the longer that time goes. So I think, if you're just starting your interview process, make sure you have an objective list of how are you gonna rate the different companies that you're interviewing with. And so even if you only interview at one, but you've got your criteria of like, well, I want a good culture that values education and that they invest in training and that the person I report to feels like a good coach who's going to coach me as a humane leader and those kinds of criteria. Then you can objectively, after the interview, say, was Roberto a humane leader for me? Well, geez, every sentence he was swearing. This is the only interview I've been on, and I've been out of work for 2 months, but you know what? I don't think I can be in a company where my leader above me is not a humane leader and is going to coach me. And he's just swearing, and I know that's not going to work. So be objective and say, as much as I need the job, maybe my answer needs to be no. Now, sometimes people are going to have to say yes. You just got to pay the rent, those kinds of things. But at least be objective in rating it and saying, I think this is going to be bad, but I got to get the job. Continue to evaluate that company while you're there, and then keep your job search going then, if that's the case. But in general, out of the things that we discussed today, I'd say if you see these things, do your best to just don't go back there at all. Just don't even accept it. Because once you're in, it is a lot harder to get out.
Yeah, indeed. And one thing that it might help our audience if they're facing this, and I don't mean that they're above a year looking for a job and they don't have it, but if you're looking for a job, but not because you're not happy, maybe you're abused, you're on, I don't know, there are too many different factors, and that depends on the one who are listening to us, is maybe creating two lists. Let me tell you, I created this list a short while ago, and this list has given me the means to recognize the company that I wanted to work with and the managers that I wanted to report, not the ones who I didn't, neither the company to be or the managers. And I won't tell you what I wrote, but this two list is like this. first, what attracts me of a company and what takes me away, you know? So
Repels
it
you,
is
repels you. What-
repels me. Thank you. So I added 10 different things. And the second list, it is what binds me to a company and what separates me from a company. And from that, I recognize many different companies. I recognize when I read a job offer, this doesn't apply to myself. Or, oh my God, this one is like reading my bio, you know?
Excellent. Excellent.
And when I began the interviews, I felt not only compelled to make questions and to also provide answers, but to recognize people like myself to recognize myself into the guys who were interviewing me. And I said, yes, I want to be in this company. From others, I said, I feel like Jackie over here. That is something that is not related to me. You know, if people create this and begins reading it on a daily basis, you will begin programming your mind, you know, and then you will recognize you and I were in IT. We understand coding.
Yeah.
So people who is not in this kind of environment, when you begin coding your mind, you will find a much better recognition of the things, of the good things that you want to be part of versus the ones that you don't want to be.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely.
Right, man. Well, I think it was an amazing episode, and we have a lot to talk about this, but maybe in the future.
Absolutely. Nice talking to you, Roberto. You have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.